think we're good to get started. So, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this webinar this morning on supporting mentally healthy workplaces. I'm Vicky Manson, I'm Deputy Head of Policy at Federation of Small Businesses. For those of you who don't know, Federation of Small Businesses is a non-profit, non-party political organisation, and we offer our members a wide range of business services, including advice and financial expertise. And we also have a good relationship with government, and we speak to them about lots of different political issues as well. Micro and small businesses comprise of almost all enterprises in Scotland at the moment. That's around 98%, and they employ more than 940,000 people and turn over 98 billion annually. So this month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it takes place every year. It's one of the most recognised Health Awareness Month campaigns globally, and it provides a full month dedicated to raising awareness of mental health issues, reducing stigma, and encouraging open conversations. So in Scotland, mental health in the workplace is an increasingly important issue for employers of all sizes. Around 1 in 4 people experience a mental health problem each year, and work-related stress, depression, and anxiety account for the majority of work-related ill health. That leads to millions of days lost annually. And for employers, particularly small businesses, this presents both a challenge and an opportunity. But by fostering supportive workplace cultures and equipping managers with the right tools and confidence, we can help ensure that people are able to thrive at work and build stronger, more resilient businesses across Scotland. So what does FSB offer its members in terms of supporting mental health in the workplace? So you might not be aware of some of this, but some of these might be new to you. So as part of your membership, you can access support on advice on employee assistance programmes, a small business guide to workplace wellness, and that includes programmes, legal duties and low-cost initiatives, mental health first aiders and what small businesses need to know, preventative healthcare for small business owners, and mental health in the workplace, and that's around practical strategies for business owners. So the purpose of this webinar today is to provide our attendees with information and support to have a mentally healthy workplace. And we're delighted to welcome 2 speakers today to explain more about available resources for employers. So first of all, we've got Stuart Reid, who is a part of the Mental Health Directorate at the Scottish Government, and also Graham Stevenson from Public Health Scotland. So before we get into the presentations, I'll just ask anyone who's got any questions to pop them into the Q&A box, and we're going to pick them up at the end of the presentations from Stuart and Graham. So I'm going to pass over now to Stuart. I'll let you introduce yourself, and yeah, on you go, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you for joining us today, and thank you to Vicky and the team for allowing us the opportunity to come along and sort of share some of the work that we've been taking forward to help employers support mental health and wellbeing in the workplace. As Vicky said, I'm Stuart Reid. I work in Scottish Government's Mental Health Directorate. Our team within the Directorate has a specific focus on the social determinants of mental health. So looking at the range of factors that can impact on people's mental health. One of the key ones that we've been working on over the last couple of years is employment, recognising that is a key sort of social determinant of mental health. So we have been, I'm joined today by Graham Stevenson from Public Health Scotland, who along with CME are key delivery partners, and Public Health Scotland also lead the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework, which Graham will introduce to you shortly. Really delighted to have the opportunity to come along and share some of this today. We are really keen to engage with as many employers as possible across Scotland, and particularly looking to engage with more smaller businesses too. So we've been working in partnership for, I think it's over 4 years now, with PHS and CME. Unfortunately, CME weren't available to come along today, but I've got a couple of slides on some of their work that I will share with you later on. So I think I can have the next slide, please, Ayla. So the mental health and wellbeing strategy and delivery plan very much underpins the work that we do within government around mental health and wellbeing. And it calls for a whole system approach to supporting mental health and wellbeing, and a very enhanced focus on early intervention and prevention. Now, the strategy recognises that the key role that employers have in supporting mental health and wellbeing, and that's by creating the conditions that enable good mental health at work. And we are working with employers to allow them to sort of have the support in place to do that. Within the delivery plan, Scottish Government and national delivery partners have very specific actions on supporting employers to create mentally healthy workplaces and to keep more people in work. And like I said, in the workplace, this means ensuring that employers are equipped with the knowledge, skills and resources that they need to promote good mental health through their policies and practices, and therefore promoting mentally healthy workplaces. If you could have the next slide, please, Ayla. So I've just included a few stats to highlight some of the ways in which mental health can impact people in the workplace. And these very much echo what we are hearing through our network. And information like this helps us decide what kind of themes we want to focus on at network events. So the first one there, we've got 63% of respondents who'd experienced at least one characteristic of burnout, feeling of exhaustion, mental distance from their job, or decline in their performance at work. 10% said that they were planning to leave their job in the next 12 months, and 11% left their previous job in the last 12 months, some way linked to mental health and wellbeing related issues. Mental ill health is the top cause of long-term absence, with 41% of respondents citing it as within the top three minor illnesses for the main reason for short-term absence at 78%. Sorry, I'm just really struggling to see the slide. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger. As you can probably tell, I was struggling to read that there. 31% of young people are not comfortable seeking support in the workplace if they are struggling with their mental health, and 10 to 15% of people across Scotland are neurodivergent, with co-occurrence of neurodivergent and mental health being common, conditions being common. If I can have the next slide, please. So, as I said earlier, we've been working in partnership with Public Health Scotland and CME over the last 4 years to ensure that employers across all sectors are equipped with the knowledge, skills and resources that they need to promote and support the conditions that enable good mental health at work. Working as a collective in this way offers many benefits, with each partner bringing different strengths to the partnership. So, as a government, we obviously have oversight of national policy development. Public Health Scotland, their work is very much rooted in evidence, and they also run the Healthy Working Lives website. And CME are Scotland's national campaign for stigma and discrimination. So they very much have that stigma lens when they're looking at the factors that impact on mental health. If I could have the next slide, please. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about today is the National Learning Network for Employers. So the network was established in March 2023. So we've just been going for around about 4 years, just over 4 years now. And we have over 600 people engaged, and that represents a wide range of sectors and industries. We have health and social care, we have education, we've got construction, hospitality, retail. That there really is a sort of broad representation of sectors and industries that come along to our meetings. The meetings are held quarterly online, and they tend to focus, each one tends to focus on a specific theme. On average, we usually average about 150 to 200 people making it along to each network event out of those 600. So they really are popular events, and we do get good representation at them. As I said, they tend to focus on a theme for each one. So in the past, we've had themes such as suicide prevention, we've had supporting the mental health and wellbeing of young people in the workforce, men's mental health at work, neurodivergence and its impact on mental health at work, among many others. And we're constantly working with our membership to ascertain what kind of themes that they want us to focus on. So the intention behind the network is that it's a peer learning space where employers can share examples of effective practice. So we have employers come along. Tends to be, we'll have a sort of mental health organisation coming along to set the scene for the discussion, and then we usually have a panel Q&A session which features employers, relevant industry bodies, and then people with lived experience as well, which usually tends to land really well and resonate with people. The network is then complemented by a quarterly newsletter. So it goes out around about 1 to 2 weeks after each event, and it contains a recap of the discussion that we had, also signposts to relevant links and resources, and it usually features some kind of guest articles and blogs that are relevant to the theme that we've covered at the network session. The network is free to join. It's open to all employers across Scotland, regardless of sector or size. We're really keen to have as many people join the network as possible and share those different perspectives. I should mention as well that later on this year, I think it's September, we have a session planned where we're going to be having a bunch of sort of larger employers and a bunch of smaller employers and sharing insights. So for larger employers, what sort of resources and what sort of things they do that can be scaled down for smaller employers. And equally, there's a lot to learn from smaller employers who can do some of those more practical things that support people's mental health that can be perhaps scaled up for larger organisations. So yeah, we're looking to run that event in September. And we're hoping that that'll be a really good way of sort of sharing knowledge between different sizes of employers. If we could have the next slide, please. So the other aspect of our work that this actually came before the network is the Supporting the Mental Healthy Workplace digital platform. So this is hosted on Public Health Scotland's Healthy Working Lives website. And basically it's signpost employers to a wide range of free resources and guidance on how to create mentally healthy workplaces. So there's a number of different sections within the platform, depending on what kind of advice that you're looking for. So there's things around staff learning and development. There's advice on building your organisational culture. Mental health in the law sort of covers the legal implications and duties of employers. And there's also a range of case studies on there too. So employers can very much sort of dip into what section of the platform is most relevant for them at that time. But it's probably useful to have a look at all the other content that's on there too. The platform has been, let's say, running, I think it's August 22, it was launched, and it really just was designed to sort of be a single point of access for employers. What we were hearing through different focus groups and working groups was that there was a lot of advice and guidance out there, but it was very difficult to navigate and find the right type of advice depending on what you were looking for. So the platform aims to sort of streamline that access into one accessible place. And yeah, hopefully it's a helpful tool for employers. I will give more information at the end on sort of links in terms of any of this and how to join the network, etc. But for now, I'll hand over to Graham to cover mentally flourishing workplaces. Thanks.
Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, good morning, everyone. As Stuart said, my name is Graham Stevenson. I am a Senior Health Improvement Officer with Public Health Scotland. A huge organisation, Public Health Scotland, and we cover all aspects of health and well-being, but my role specifically is around mental health, and specifically within that, supporting employers and workplaces generally with staff mental health and well-being. So really covering such a big topic, mental health, and there's so many different facets to it, especially for a business. And as Stuart outlined, through the employer network and through the online, the website that we mentioned, there's loads of support out there. There's loads of tools and resources to help all businesses to better support the health and well-being of staff. And we understand that as well as we possibly can, that there are so many different challenges for employers. And we want to put in as much support in place as possible to support employers to just sort of be able to navigate that landscape and address challenges as they come up, but also take a proactive approach to staff mental health and take that kind of preventative approach to hopefully foster a workplace or an environment that aims to give employees a really sturdy basis of support should mental health problems arise. So to help do that and to help navigate this landscape, this space, over the last few years we developed the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework. Ayla, if you can just skip on to the next slide, please. And yeah, the purpose of the framework is to really make sure that employers like anyone on the call today and employers across Scotland can access the support that they need and in the way that they will get the most out of it as well. So we put together the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework in collaboration with a range of businesses from across the country. There's no point in us as Public Health Scotland saying this is what you need to do. We needed to get the insights from workplaces about what is working, what doesn't work, and where we can better develop something like a resource like Mentally Flourishing Workplaces to really make a positive impact for workplaces. So it was really informative and really encouraging and fruitful work that we did with a range of workplaces, with a range of businesses, to find out what challenges they have and to find out what would go into a framework, what would make a framework up, and what would make it practical and useful as a resource for you to take forward. So we developed the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework. It was published about a year ago, just over a year ago, and it's a free framework. That's probably one of the biggest points to get across is Mentally Flourishing Workplaces is a completely free resource for any organisation, regardless of size and sector, and is designed to foster that mentally flourishing environment for all employees. So as I mentioned, we developed Mentally Flourishing Workplaces with a number of businesses, and it's geared towards, the framework is geared towards supporting organisations to really think about what you're already doing around staff mental health and build on what is there, find out what you're doing well and keep going with those sorts of things, and also find out where the gaps are and use the framework to help sort of plug some of those gaps and build this supportive environment for all employees. There's lots of new approaches out there. As I said, there's lots of resources, very much complements what Stuart was mentioning around the resources that are available online. But it's kind of, where do you start with this kind of thing? There's lots of different options for that, and it's about taking forward an approach for your organisation that works for you. Every organisation's journey with the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework will be completely unique. So there is no specific start point and there is no end point. It's really just a case of building and what you're doing and continuously looking to improve that. And we will keep Mentally Flourishing Workplaces as up to date and as relevant and as packed full of all of the important information that workplaces need. So the circular diagram on the left of the screen there is the dimensions. So Mentally Flourishing Workplaces, as I said, it's such a big area. So we've broken it up into 7 different dimensions that each will have their own unique kind of element of workplace mental health, but also overlap with one another as well. And as I mentioned before, hopefully any organisation, regardless of size, micro organisations, small and medium enterprise to large employers, can pick this up and adapt it and put it to use for your own different challenges and employee base. Ayla, if you could move on for me, that'd be great. Thank you. Oh, I forgot this is a wee kind of, if you just click on a few times until all the, there you go, until all the, the dimensions come up there. So that's the framework on the screen there, and I'll go into a little bit of detail about each of the dimensions, but really what I'll be able to provide after the session this morning is links to everything so that you can take it away and have a read, and hopefully consider adapting the framework or adopting the framework for your organisation. One of the biggest overarching dimensions that we were encouraged to focus on, and was a big issue for the employers that helped us develop this, was workplace culture. Such a difficult kind of topic to hone in on. It covers so many different aspects, but we want this dimension to really encourage organisations to promote a safe, an inclusive and a supportive environment. So a positive workplace culture that supports employee mental health and well-being, it needs to be driven by leadership. It needs to be driven by a proactive kind of communication around mental health and well-being. There needs to be, for instance, stigma and discrimination around mental health and well-being is something that CME support workplaces with. So we want organisations to take that zero tolerance stance when it comes to stigma and discrimination when it comes to mental health. And by fostering that kind of environment, that will hopefully enable employees to be more confident that they can talk safely about their own mental health through open, compassionate conversations with colleagues, with managers, with whoever is available to support them. And also it would overall secure an ongoing commitment to support all levels in the workplace, enable that positive change for the entire organisation. So big topic, but I'll go into a wee bit more detail about how we break that down as well, so that it doesn't seem too overwhelming and too much at once. The next dimension is around mental health awareness, so promotion of mental health and well-being. So there's a lot of employers on the call today. I'm sure that you're already doing things around mental health and well-being, awareness raising, things like Mental Health Awareness Week and Month, and the different campaigns that happen throughout a year. But we want organisations to think about some of the messages that you're promoting and make that as accessible and as varied as possible to make sure that anyone that is perhaps struggling with their mental health or has in the past can feel seen, can feel supported, and can realise what is support is available to them, so that they're not coming to work feeling that that's somewhere that they're not going to get any support, or they don't see the opportunity to talk about their own mental health. So it's really about these open messages and positive reflections on mental health that we encourage through the framework. The accessing support dimension is all about the ability to be open and be open in a safe environment. So it's important for everyone to know what support is available as you go through all stages of employment. So we encourage employers to understand a little bit more about individuals within the workforce, what the individual needs are. If someone comes to you for support, we encourage employers to be able to give that information about where they can signpost people to, what the process and procedure would be like if someone was to disclose that they have a mental health problem and are struggling. Just making that support available to them, so that they can access it, so that it's relatively straightforward. They're taking down barriers to support and making sure that pathway is really safe and available for all employees. Learning to Grow is about learning and development. Again, just a huge area. There's lots of different training courses and support available for mental health and wellbeing generally, lots of different learning opportunities. So we use this dimension to show that it's important that learning and development begins at an early stage from joining an organisation and as an ongoing learning journey. So as an organisation, we ask that you determine who needs learning around mental health and wellbeing. And we ask you to perhaps consider a minimum level of learning around mental health for all employees, and the framework very much supports you to do that. It signposts to all of the relevant training through the website that Stuart mentioned, and through ourselves at Public Health Scotland, we can help you access a range of different learning opportunities. For instance, we're going to be stepping up the mentally healthy workplace training for managers, and we offer that training on a regular basis that should be available in each of the different health board areas around Scotland as well. But we're also doing a training for trainers option that we'll be doing a lot more frequently coming up as well. So it's training managers to be able to, training staff rather, to be able to deliver the mentally healthy workplace training directly to their staff. So that's a big opportunity to coming up that I encourage you to look out for, and obviously we'll provide all of that information. Again, I'm just skipping through a lot of the dimensions quite quickly, but we will leave all of this information so that I'm not overwhelming, hopefully, with all of the information that's in the framework. There's a lot there. But treating people well, having good, fair work policies, we ask employers to assess how current policies that you have can protect mental health and wellbeing, how effective the policies are, how accessible they are. And that's part of this dimension. So doing that kind of assessment will help identify opportunities for improving and developing new policies beyond just the basics of legal or statutory duties, but consider the potential impact of policies and anticipating the needs of different employee groups. The last couple of dimensions of the 7, looking back to look forward, continuous support. What that means is really taking a bit of a self-assessment approach to what you've already done around mental health and wellbeing. Everyone on this call today, you're here for a purpose. I'm sure you've done some mental health activities and support for your employees. So we want you to look at what you've done and record the learning from that. That's crucial to discovering what has worked and what hasn't worked, and how you can learn from these things. If things didn't go really well, ask why, and build new processes and procedures in, or initiatives for your staff, reflecting on that information about what's gone before, what's gone well, or what perhaps hasn't gone so well. And finally, measuring success, monitoring your progress around this. Again, a big issue that we hope that we can encourage employers to look at is really just about how do you measure the mental health of staff. It's not immediately straightforward, but there are various ways to do that, whether it's looking at any data that you record around sickness absence, for example, and the reasons behind sickness absence, looking behind the numbers, the data that you have available, and what is the cause of particular sickness absences, for instance, but also using the qualitative side of the information that you've got available from staff surveys or temperature checks. What data do you collect? What does it tell you? And what more could you do when it comes to recording the staff, the mental health and wellbeing of staff? Ayla, if you could move on for the next slide, please. Thank you. Mentally flourishing workplaces, the framework, when you hopefully after today take it away and have a look. There's two, it's made up of 2 documents at the moment. As I said, we published this a year ago, and we are working on ways to make the framework more interactive and more accessible. At the moment, it's 2 PDF documents, which, if I'm honest, is not our end goal for mentally flourishing workplaces. We're working with various partners at the moment to decide what format and what what ways we can make the framework more interactive, to again just break down any barriers for yourselves as employers to be able to adopt something like the framework and take it forward. So for the moment, there's 2 documents. There's the overview. This takes a broad look at the framework, roughly just what I've been talking about this morning so far, exploring what a mentally flourishing workplace looks like, what the purpose of this framework is, and showing you and promoting that message of why taking a proactive and preventative approach to workplace mental health is so important. What potential benefits there are to taking this forward, and also the document takes you through how to use the framework and all of those practical steps. The implementation guide, that's the second document, and that takes a much deeper dive into each of the dimensions. It gives a range of practical evidence-based approaches and suggestions for how each dimension could be addressed. So I gave you a kind of broader overview of each of the dimensions, but what does that actually mean? What activities or actions or tasks can you undertake to start working towards those dimensions? Well, you use the implementation guide for that. We highlight all of the examples of best practice that we could think of, and that will hopefully allow each organisation to measure how mentally flourishing you are at the moment, identify any gaps, identify any additional actions that you could take, and make improvements gradually over a period of time. And also each dimension has an additional list of resources and signposting to lots of different support that's out there. The whole purpose behind this is to help you navigate your way through all of that support, because there is so much out there that we want organisations to be able to find and to use and to put in place. So it's hopefully it's helping you to identify those and what would work most for the employees in your organisations. The next slide, second to last slide there, is just some of the basic information really about getting started with mentally flourishing workplaces. As I mentioned, we're coming off the back of the winding down of things like the Healthy Working Lives Award, which which recognised the achievements of workplaces in developing staff mental health and wellbeing strategies. But what we hope to move forward with mentally flourishing workplaces is that there is no final destination here. It's just a process of looking at what you're doing, identifying some gaps, identifying some strategies that you could take forward, and building on those, and doing that over, say, a year, and then the next year looking at, right, this is going well, is there anything more we can add on, and so on and so on. So it's that continuous improvement. There's no set order to the dimensions that I mentioned. Every organisation's journey with the framework will be completely unique. So it's what is most important to your organisation now, and picking that up and then maybe adding on other dimensions as you go. The approaches within the framework are merely recommendations. We put in as much information as we could, but as I say, organisations can choose which recommendations to take forward and implement those, or add some new ones, come up with your own. It has to work for the employees. It has to work for the staff. So that's why there is no set order to this. We are looking at different ways, as I say, to develop the framework, make it more interactive, make it more accessible. So if there are any barriers you think to come and taking forward something like a framework like mentally flourishing workplaces, we would love to hear about that. We would love to be able to make it as easy as possible. And ultimately, the main goal is to just not try doing too much at one time, and don't be put off by the amount of different options and information that's out there. Change around mental health for staff doesn't happen overnight. So the approaches that we outline and the guide are just suggestions to assist with your planning. And really the whole framework is an invitation for you to kind of reframe what support for mental health of your employees is like, and discover new ways to work through that. And it's designed to make this space easier for you as employers to navigate that landscape. So the final slide is the next one, Ayla, is just the QR code to download the framework, or the link there on the screen, and you can take away the framework and have a look at it and contact us. We'll provide you with the implementation guide and any support that you would need going forward with it. But perhaps not necessarily for today, but ongoing, if you think this is something that your employees would be open to, and it would work for your organisation, we would love to hear about it. We would also love to hear about the challenges and any barriers to something like this, and really try and make it easier and more straightforward to really pick this up and run with it. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Back to you, Stuart.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. Ayla, if I could have the next slide, please. Sorry, could I have the next one, please? I think the CME and work slides are missing from the end there, so apologies for that. I'm going to talk a little bit about the CME and work programme. I'm by no means the expert on this, but unfortunately our colleagues were unable to join us today, so I'll try and do as much justice to it as I can. So the CME and work programme, basically, obviously, unfortunately, stigma and discrimination still can be quite a pervasive issue within organisations. So CME work with employers and individuals to tackle mental health, stigma and discrimination in the workplace. They can do that by accessing advice, tools and support to improve the working lives of employees. They can help employers encourage an equal and fair recruitment process, ensuring that people with mental health are sort of considered fairly within that space. And it can also support people to stay in work wherever possible, ensuring also that when people return to work from mental health absence, that they are fully supported in doing that. So kind of similar to the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework, they do have different stages of the support that they can offer. So there's a number of tools and resources from the See Us movement for individuals looking to take action to tackle mental health, stigma and discrimination at work. They have a starter pack for organisations to take action against stigma, but aren't quite in a place to commit to the next stage, which is the CME and Work digital portal. So the portal, really, that was introduced, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago, and that is for organisations who are ready to take a whole organisational approach to tackling mental health inclusion in work. So there's a 4-stage sort of element to the portal, where employers can work through various things like self-assessment. They take a self-assessment of where they are currently. There's a section to get the views of employees, so almost like surveys, pulse surveys, to assess where people feel that they're at the moment. It also then allows you to create an improvement plan. And then the final stage of that process is the suggestions to make real sustained changes to help ensure that workplaces remain as stigma-free as possible. So I'll pop the links. I've already included the link to the digital platform that I was talking about earlier, and the space within the platform for the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework that Graham was just sharing with you. I've included the link to that too. I'll also include the link to the CME and Work part of their website, where you can find more information on any of that. But yeah, that is the CME Work portal. If I could ask you, Ayla, to please go back a slide if that's not too awkward to do. Thank you. So I've included a QR code there just to sign up. So this is the QR code to sign up and register for the our mailing list. As I say, we have over 600. I think the last count was 617 individuals engaged. And as I say, by doing so, you will receive invitations to all future network events, as well as receiving a copy of that quarterly newsletter that follows each event and sort of summarises the discussion. So I believe if you hover over the QR code and visit the link, just need to pop in a couple of details. I think it takes about 2 minutes at most, and that will get you on a mailing list. And yeah, you'll receive any updates as they arise in the future. So thank you for hearing us today. That concludes the presentations that we plan to deliver. Apologies for the missing slides on CME. I'll make sure that that's corrected when the slides are distributed. And yeah, if we can just move on to the next slide, please, Ayla. Just like to offer the opportunity for anyone who's any questions. I'd be happy to take those. So yeah, I'll hand back to Vicky for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both Stuart and Graham. That was really interesting, and it just goes to show how many resources are kind of out there already. So I don't know if we've got any questions at the moment, but in terms of where to start, what's the very first steps that you would say for a business that's embarking on and looking at the mentally healthy workplace? Stuart?
Yeah, I would say probably two things. So the first thing would be to have a look at the digital platform. As I said earlier, very much sort of you can dip into it at any point you like, depending on what kind of information that you're looking for. And everything that we've spoke about is on that platform too. So there is sort of guidance around the Mentally Flourishing Workplaces framework. There's a description of what that is and the links to the various elements of that Graham was discussing earlier. There is also a specific page on the platform that tells you more about the network. So it kind of covers the newsletters are all on there from previous events. So there's a sort of down the left-hand side, those are all published on there as well. So you can have a look and see what kind of sort of format that takes and what the discussions are like. So yeah, anyone sort of looking for that initial where they begin, I think the platform is a really good place to start because there's so much on there that can be helpful. And the network too, by signing up to the network, it allows you the opportunity to come into that space with others. It's very much a peer learning space where we have employers sharing what kind of things they are doing to support people. And it's very often, it's the most practical of things. I think there's often the misunderstanding that, yes, bigger organisations do have the sort of luxury of having employee assistance programs and shiny policies, but often it's the smaller things that actually land the best with employees. Just feeling heard, feeling supported, that sort of compassionate response that Graham was sort of alluding to when talking about the framework as well. Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, is just to start that conversation and join like-minded organisations that are maybe equally not knowing where to begin.
Thank you, Stuart. And we've got a question here, and it's just asking if there is legislation requiring promotion of mental health for employers. So is there a legal obligation, I guess, is what's been asked there.
Sorry, I'll jump in, Stuart, if that's okay.
Yeah,
there's not legislation so much around having to promote mental health for employers, but I would say through the support that's available that Stuart's mentioned, you'll see things like how to adhere to the Equality Act, so that if an employee comes forward and discloses that they have a mental health condition and requires some support, that mental health condition or mental health generally is included within the Equality Act, and therefore the employer is duty bound to put in place reasonable adjustments and talk about what best support would be available for that member of staff. And when it comes to mental health, and again, just from working with employers for over a number of years, some of those reasonable adjustments that employers can put in place, they don't need to be too in depth or too much upheaval, as long as there's a wee bit of room for manoeuvre within that, and a bit of a discussion with the member of staff. So it's that person-centred approach. Some of the adjustments are, can be things like, just changing work patterns slightly, changing the different tasks or duties that are required of that member of staff, and just having that conversation with them. Needn't cost anything to put adjustments in place, that sort of thing. Some of the smaller adjustments that you can make are, as Stuart mentioned, some of the most effective. So that's the main one that really jumps to mind from the question. I don't know if there's anything else, Stuart, you need to consider.
No, Graham, you've covered everything I was going to say, just around the Equality Act, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think just one other thing I was thinking about as well, is there any specific sectors that you find that face more barriers than the others, or is it kind of just across the board?
I don't think specific sectors, not really. I think that when we offer support out, and through the employer network, for instance, that Stuart mentioned, we do get a lot of larger employers coming to us, and larger employers, that's absolutely fine. But as was mentioned, large employers have a lot of in-house support available, and we want to understand more about how we can put support in place for micro organizations, small and medium enterprises, because we can signpost and we can support larger organizations, but also it's the smaller organizations that perhaps have more challenges and more require maybe extra support or signposting to things that you might not have come across before, and putting those supports in place, and hopefully realizing that some of the barriers are straightforward enough to overcome, hopefully anyway. But in terms of specific sectors, I don't think so. Stuart, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's really just the kind of the larger employer that we speak to a lot, and we know what the challenges are, but we want to speak to more smaller employers to really gear that support towards that area, to make sure that we're getting the word out there, and that these resources are put to good use.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that Graham said there. In terms of sectors, I mean, there are sort of sometimes pinch points when you look at particular sectors. Like, for example, construction is a largely sort of male-dominated industry, and it tends to be that, I think things are improving, but in the large males are sort of less likely to sort of reach out and seek support or talk about any mental health challenges. And then you can look at things like hospitality, where there is a large sort of number of young people in their workforce, and at the moment we're hearing a lot of evidence around the impact on young people's mental health, and that they're really sort of struggling. So when you look at it that way, there are some sort of sectors that you would say that they've got different sort of experiences. But yeah, that's just that can change at any given time. It's just it's just the way things are in certain industries. Legal profession is another example. We're often told that it's obviously a very high pressure environment. The sort of professional services, there can be a large prevalence of stress in those types of environments as well. So yeah, that was one thing I would add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's, oh no, wait a minute, we've got another one. Yep, just a comment to say it's a great support resource you've developed, especially for the micro and SMEs. And I think that's just kind of hitting on the point that, larger organisations have got that capacity in individual departments to look at those, issues. So yeah, hopefully those joining today, they'll see how valuable that is and be able to tap into that. So I think that's everything at the moment. Have you got any further comments, Stuart or Graham, or do you feel you've covered everything?
I think we've covered everything. Just thank you for having us, and thank you to everyone who came along too. Yeah, I would just encourage you, if you have an interest in the subject, which I'm assuming you do by joining today, just to sort of look at the links. I see that Graham's included the See Me and Work link too. Go on there and have a look. Just a small shout out about our next network event as well. So I mentioned the one in September because it felt quite relevant in the sense of it's about a focus on smaller and larger employers. But we are planning a session for, I believe, the 28th of June. No, it's not. It's the 18th of June, which is going to be looking at some of the broader factors that can impact mental health at work. So things like unpaid carers in the workplace and how that sort of impacts on mental health, but also broader issues around long-term health conditions, disabilities, how those can affect your mental health at work as well. So yeah, if you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get the invite for that when it comes out probably in the next week or two. We've got I think a number of employers coming along to that. We've got Flexibility Works, who are going to talk about some of the sort of flexible approaches which Graham is sort of alluding to, sort of reasonable adjustments that can support people's mental health. And we have Carers Scotland, who are going to be talking about the Carer Positive scheme, which sort of supports carers with their mental health and well-being, among many others. We're just sort of firming up the agenda for that at the moment. But yeah, if you're interested, just click on the QR code or the link, and it'll take you to sign up. But yeah, that was everything from me. I don't know if there was anything, Graham, you wanted to add.
No, the only thing was that obviously Stuart and I have posted the links to things like the Employer Network, the online platform, the framework, See Me and Work resources. There's a lot there, but it's also just important to note that these link together really well, rather than are in competition. They're very much not. It's all very much a joined up approach that we take. So I suppose that's one of the main things we try and get across in the framework is don't be overwhelmed. Don't worry about the amount of information that's out there. Small steps, and yeah, sign up for the network is a really good place to start as well. An hour and a half session once a quarter with the newsletter, with the other employers on there as well. It's really gone from strength to strength. So yeah, that's what I would sign off on.
Thank you. Yeah, just a big thank you to Stuart and Graham for taking the time today to come along and deliver all that information. It's been really helpful, and I've actually learned a couple of little things as well, so that's always useful for me. So, and thank you to Ayla, who's been working hard behind the scenes. Following the session, there will be an email comes out with the links and a copy of the slides. But if anybody needs anything further, please do get in touch. And I think that's us with about 7 minutes to go, so that's not too bad. But yeah, just like to say thank you, and do get in touch if you've got any further questions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.